Back to NCTV. I'm Anne Marie Battistone. This is State and Local. And I just want to say a few things. This is one of the candidates' interviews. And I do this just about every year. And I just want to mention a few things that I have invited everybody. Chad Peck was nice enough to email me back and say he wasn't going to come on. I'm going to be doing 4. This is my 3rd one. I do want to mention that I invited Chris Weider's opponent twice, but she is too busy to come on. So I had wanted to ask her about something I'd heard her say. So I'm going to talk about it now, I guess, while I'm talking to Chris. And so Chris is with me here. And how's everything going?
Very good. How are you?
I'm all right. Okay, what I wanted to ask you about is, you've made a lot of statements and you've taken a stand about expenses and accountability, and I mean not just expense accountability, but also employee accountability. And of course, there's been this whole thing with the budget, and you've kind of been a lone voice. And I mean, I've heard comments which have completely misconstrued your intent. And I don't know whether there's some kind of panic and then people jump to the worst possible concern. But could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think, it's prior to the pandemic, I think people were concerned. I mean, 3% raises every year, 4% raises every year, a $41 million budget, reserves of less than $2 million, free cash of less than $500,000. It just couldn't continue. And I think people were very concerned about that. And obviously, this year during the budget process, we really wanted a zero-based budget. We didn't go that route. We got somewhat of a zero-based budget. I think the schools do a pretty good job of getting closer to a zero-based budget presentation than the town does. But zero-based budgets take work. They require you to look at every position. They require you to value that position, what's needed, what does that person do, and then put a dollar value to it. And right now we're doing a reevaluation of all the positions in town. So hopefully next year we'll be able to do a better job of assessing what our positions are we need, what are they worth, are we overpaying, underpaying, how many positions we need in different departments. So, but I think the whole point was, the selectmen, the board of directors, we are responsible for the finances of the town.
Well, you're sort of like a mayor, like the three of you are like a mayor.
We're a board of directors. We're really a board of directors for a corporation, and our job is to make sure that our fiscal house is in order. And I take that very seriously. And I think the citizens do. They pay a lot of taxes in this town, one of the higher tax rates in the state, and they want to see value, or they want to see a lower tax rate and the same value. So it's not unreasonable. And I think a lot of people took it the wrong way. They thought we were trying to cut positions. We thought they were trying to cut their budgets. We thought we were trying to get rid of people. We thought we were trying to cut the schools. None of that is true. None of that was ever said. I don't know where that was how that was pulled out of the air. I've heard it. People say we were cutting positions. We never said we wanted to cut positions in the school. We never said we wanted to cut positions in town. We wanted them to present us with budgets that made sense and tell us what they were spending money on. And we got to that. We actually got to a 3.4% budget that was approved by the Board of Selectmen. And then after the pandemic took place, we obviously had to cut that back because we knew that we would never meet those revenue numbers. But I think people have to realize that it's the selectmen's responsibility. And we just got our bond rating results the other day, and we got a negative. We got a negative. They said
that's because of the low free cash, right?
Our reserve between free cash and our reserves, they just weren't high enough, and so we got a negative and to watch. So they want to see where we're going, but this pandemic will not help. But people got to be concerned about that. And your bond rating affects your interest rate, which affects when you're borrowing money for projects what you're paying.
So was there a letter grade like B or B plus, or when you say
No,
negative?
we still have an A rating, but they did evaluate us as a negative. They gave us a negative rating, the bond company. So in other
Huh.
words, to watch us. So we were lucky. We did pretty well with the sale of the bonds on June. I think it was June 2nd. But it's of concern, and we're probably not the only town. You know what? We live here, and it is our responsibility. So when people say just use your reserves to make up your budget shortfalls, use up your free cash, that's not the way to go, because bond companies look at that, they lower your bond rating, and again, that affects your interest rate on borrowing.
Now I remember when I went back. It was it was April 10th of 2019 when I interviewed you when you were first campaigning, and you described yourself as somebody who keeps to himself. So, if being that way, has this been hard for you in any respect, being somebody who keeps to himself, and now you've got all this to do, people calling and asking and worrying, and
I think when you take the job, or when you have to realize that you're going to have to be responsive to people. So I've gotten used to that. I've had to meet people on Saturday morning in parking lots. I've had to meet people at night. You get used to it. And if you're gonna take the job, you have to be available to the people, plain and simple. So no, it's become a little bit easier. I still keep to myself, but
when you can.
I think yes, but I think you have to be available for the public, plain and simple. I've had lots of opportunities to go to different selectmen. You obviously have Memorial Day. You have to go be presented at. We had I was able to go to the Eagle Scout presentation last year, which was fantastic.
And,
so those are the
you
good
were
things.
Alone.
So, yep.
You went alone.
Yep. It's good stuff. I mean, that's the fun stuff, and that's what makes it interesting. And you gear up for those things, and you just have to be prepared that these are part of the job, and you have to do it.
So have you, what do you think it is about Norfolk that we've gotten into this mess? I mean, we used to talk about it sometime, but I was wondering if you might want to comment on that, because it would seem when we've had previous conversations, we've talked of, and I really should mention that we're friends. I forgot to mention that, that it's this long history of sort of, not exactly negligence, but lenience.
I think, you could look at different communities. I mean, I wouldn't call it a mess, because look at Plainville. They're looking at a $3.5 million override this year that they're going to be voting on the next month. That's a mess. They've got some real tough choices. I think Norfolk has, just grown. And really, I don't think a lot of people were watching finances as closely as they should have. And I think you just even though it's up 2.5, you can't just keep giving raises. You can't give vehicles. You can't give car allowances. You just can't keep giving away the taxpayers' money without accountability. And I think we've had a lot of that going on. I think a lot of money was spent. I mean, and even though there's a reason why the Board of Selectmen has not had a meeting with regard to the overrides at the police station. But, $3 million override on the police station. Why? That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't
now,
happen.
when are the selectmen going to speak to people about that? Is it going to be at this town meeting? I mean, it's been put off and put off.
It won't be at this town meeting. We've tried to reach out to other parties to see if there was some resolution, financial resolution for the town. And obviously, these are executive sessions, so we can't really discuss them. And that's really the reason why we haven't brought this to a town meeting or to a selectmen's meeting. But we will hopefully have this resolved. The pandemic obviously didn't help with any kind of negotiations. So hopefully before the fall town meeting, we will be able to present to taxpayers what went on, what our findings are, and what the future is with regard to that. But it's very frustrating when you have people who say, you've overspent $1 million. We have firefighters living in a trailer. We promised them a $5 million renovation that we never could give them, and we never delivered on it. So that's really troublesome. And I think a lot of people in town really believe the fire department really needed that restoration of that building. They're the people who you call when you have a heart attack. They're the people you call when you feel sick, and none of that's happened. They're living in trailers. The building hasn't been renovated, so it's so disheartening. But we'll get there. We will get there.
Is the trailer down behind? I've never seen. It's it down back behind the fire station?
It's behind the fire station. Yeah, it's behind and to the left a little bit. But we have female firefighters and male firefighters, so you've got to obviously have different living quarters. So it makes it difficult. Yeah. So
Now you just said three. Was it 3 million override or was it 2? I thought it was 2.
It was
3?
It was over 2. It would be 2.6 or 2.8. So I just rounded up to 3 million. But and again, we haven't resolved it yet. So we're not there yet.
Well, now speaking of taxes, and I mean, I would have brought this up with her had she come on, but I distinctly remember, and I think you must remember, that she had said either I love paying taxes or I'm happy to pay taxes, and I don't see how somebody with that bias can be objective when they're looking at a budget.
Yeah, it's taxes are, what do they say, death and taxes, right? You have to do it. So we all know we have to pay our fair share. And I think everybody in town agrees that they have to pay their fair share of taxes. But I think, I think it was an interesting statement. I don't love paying taxes. I pay them. I know it's a necessary evil, but I certainly don't. I don't just like opening up my wallet. I like to get value for my money, and that's the way I look at it. I think to say that I love paying taxes is I don't think that's and I don't know, not something I would say we pay it.
Well, it's been said before. It's actually been a political platform for a very long time. And it seems to me it's completely out of sync with most people in town, I would imagine.
Well, I think I would say that people in Norfolk realize they have to pay taxes and they want services, and they expect services for that tax dollar. I just think that there's a point when they feel that they're not getting the value for the tax dollar they're paying. And that's what they want to make sure. They want to make sure they're getting value. So that's part of the zero-based budgeting. That's part of the budget process. I mean, a lot of people took it as an affront that the Board of Selectmen, they want us to present a budget. And there shouldn't have been that. It should have been, yes, you should present a budget. We want to see your budget. We want to see what you're spending your money on. And that's what we did earlier this year. We actually made each department come in and present a budget to us. And I think we were very fair with all of them. We didn't try to chisel them down. We asked them what their budgets were. We asked them to present them.
No, I was at that meeting.
Yeah, and I think we did a good job of saying, what is it that you need, as opposed to just saying, give 3%, give 4%. That's not responsible finance. Responsible finance is having them present a budget, what they need. I think the DPW did a fantastic job of presenting their budget. They actually dug deep into it and actually looked at where they were spending their money and realized some areas they weren't spending well, other areas they were spending too much. So I think the more
that
we
was
do
Barry
that,
who
that was Barry
who presented. Yeah,
and he did a great job. And I think we have to do more of that. And I think Ingrid with the school, the Norfolk schools, she is well versed in her budget, and she can take you right down to the nitty gritty of it. And that's good. And we need to do more of that because the town, it isn't commercial base. We'll never have a commercial base here. But at some point, the residential base is not going to keep increasing, and you're not going to have the new growth. So yeah, you can raise taxes 2.5% each year, but you don't have new growth. If you don't have more excise tax, at some point there's a tipping of the scales, and it just can't afford to keep paying the kind of money we're paying out. We can't afford to keep giving vehicles. We can't afford to keep giving car allowances, and we have to sit back a little bit and look at our finances.
Well, I have perceived a lot of resentment on the part of people because this is it's almost like they're shocked.
I think there's a small group of people who didn't like being questioned, and that's going to happen with anything. It just if you take a new job, the old guard's going to be questioned. I think people just naturally, don't like to be questioned. And I think a lot of people didn't like to be questioned. Some people had no problems with it. Others made a bigger deal out of it. But I hope it continues. I think Kevin and Cece and myself, if I'm elected, will continue that process next year to make sure that there is accountability, and we will eventually get to a zero-based budget where they're actually presenting jobs, descriptions of what people do, and we'll move forward from there. And maybe we'll see the budget either not go up. The budget will always increase slightly, but at some point we can maybe control the amount of increase.
Now, I'm kind of ashamed to ask this because I should know the answer. What did the selectmen end up with for the percentage increase? Because I'm asking because I heard at the advisory board they were talking about 1.3 or can you explain that?
Yeah, it's actually the budget that's been approved by both the Board of Select, or the budget that, I shouldn't say approved, it gets approved at town meeting. The budget that was presented by the selectmen that the advisory board has now endorsed is a 0.013% increase overall, year over year. And that's mostly due to the pandemic. We obviously realized that we are not going to see the Chapter 70 money. We're probably not going to see all of that. We're not going to see all the Chapter 90 money, which is what we use for our roads. And excuse me, we see some local receipts, excise tax, and so we have to pull out. Excuse me. So we to balance the budget after reducing those, we have to pull out about $980,000. So from between the town, the schools, and KP, we'll get to that number. And Blythe, town administrator, right now is going to be negotiating with the schools to see if they're willing to take a smaller increase in raises, which will allow us to get there without cutting any level of service, without cutting any employees from the town, which will be great.
So why was I hearing 2.4? Was that what it was at some point?
2.34 was what was approved by the Board of Selectmen. Cece and Kevin agreed to 2.34. I actually didn't agree with it because I felt we could do better at the time prior to the pandemic. After the pandemic, we realized Cece and I, Kevin voted against it, but Cece and I actually voted for it. We said we have to cut this budget. And that's when we went down to a 0.013, which we approved. Kevin wanted to sort of wait and see, but I think he's actually come around and he agrees that we really needed to cut it to 0.013%.
So, I mean, it's practically zero. I mean, it's virtually zero.
Yes, it's virtually zero. Yeah, a little cost.
Now, you probably didn't think that, sorry. You probably didn't think that was going to happen, did you?
Well, I think you hope, I think it's, you don't pat yourself on the back for it. It happened because of the pandemic, because we see our revenue going down. So, but I think it's, again, it gives us opportunity to just understand what our expenses are and to see, there's you look about regionalization of different positions, regionalization and consolidation of human resources, library services, IT services, animal control. There's so many areas, nurses, there's so many areas that we can really start to look at regionalization. I think we're going to start to see that because other towns are in the same position we're in. And I mean, today on the news, Brookline has major cuts this year. They've given a lot of pink slips to teachers. Newton.
Really?
Newton, no capital expenditures over $1,000 without approval in Newton right now. I mean, so towns are taking this extremely seriously, and they're making sure that expenses are kept in check.
2 towns with a ton of money.
Yep, and both of them. Brookline, both of them. And I just talked to someone in Newton today, and he said nothing over $1,000 in capital expenditures without approval. This is big. They're really, and they're watching this year's dollars. It's not next year's dollars they're watching.
Now, what's our situation with approval of capital expenditures?
Right now, I think we freezed all but necessary expenditures. Right now, is what Blythe has said, is that no expenditures except for necessary. So I think we also are holding off on any capital expenditures at this time, and we're not filling any open positions.
I mean, prior to that, was there a level at which expenditures had to be approved? And how
Yes,
was that done? Was that just by the select?
it was Board of Selectmen. Yeah, at a certain level, the Board of Selectmen would have to review them. You know, operating expense capital, they were able to do because it was in their budget. But any major expenses would have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Now, I'm just curious, what do you feel you've done or you did this past year that you're personally pleased with in the context of as a selectman? And was there some, I don't know, was there some achievement or accomplishment that?
You know, it's a tough question. I think hopefully people realize that the finances are important, and that the opinions of those three people, the Board of Selectmen they elected, is important. And we're all diverse. We have there's a 20-year age difference between us. I hate to say it, I think I'm the oldest on the board. Sad to say, but there's a 20-year gap, so you get different perspectives. Kevin's much younger; he has a different perspective. See, an attorney.
He's the youngest of the three, I think. He's the youngest of the three, I bet.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah.
Calcutta.
So I think bringing the finances to light and discussing the finances at the level we did this year, I think I'm very proud of that. That finally a lot of people got involved with the finances of the town and understanding them. You know, Ed Haddad is new to this, and he came on a number of times. He was very interested. And a number of other individuals came out and really wanted to understand the budget. We had people at meetings who wanted to understand what's going on. And I think that was probably, I would say, if you say that's your biggest achievement, I say, is getting people to get involved and understand that we have to address the finances.
I was just going to say, because, I mean, you know, even they don't all show up, but I mean, there's a lot of people over in that community over there that I think you inspired. And I think there are more people coming to these meetings now than before. I mean, other than people having to show up for some particular reason, you know, but just coming to listen and wanting to know. So, I mean, I feel as if it was a bit of a catalyst.
Yeah.
That you.
Well, I think you also got to look at the board as a whole too. I mean, it is diverse, and yet at the same time is look at the amount of discussion on each item. I don't think I've ever seen a select board that had much discussion about each item that came before it as this board in all my years in town. Usually it was, you know, one person made the motion or one person discussed and the other two agreed. You didn't get a lot of back and forth discussion. And I think if you look at this board, there's been a lot of discussion on a lot of different topics. And that's good. That's good because, again, it's representing your community. So I think that, again, that's a huge positive, as well as that you really were able to have three people sit in a room or sit on Zoom and really discuss the town's finances, events going on in town, decisions being made in town. And none of the three were afraid to voice their opinion, which is great, And so I think that's a big problem.
I think that's increased. I think that is more evident now in the last, I'm going to say, a few months, because I follow the meetings very closely. But I think that's something that's kind of grown as time's gone on.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a huge plus. I mean, some people call it transparency. I don't think it was transparency. I think it's just people with opinions and willing to discuss them and not be afraid to discuss them. And I think that was big. I think a lot of people appreciate the fact, and I've heard it from people, is they really do like the fact that these three selectmen are in there discussing things, not afraid to voice their opinion, not afraid to disagree. And we all have our passions. Kevin has said many times is that, you know, sometimes he's scared of it because I'm so passionate about things and my voice increases in octaves. So I assure him that not to worry, but I think it's great. I think it's great that we have these three diverse individuals and we are discussing these items. And I've seen people, I mean, it's nice to see people you never see at a meeting come to a Board of Selectmen's meeting or log into a Board of Selectmen's meeting when it's on Zoom to see what's going on and to voice a question or to make a statement.
A lot of people coming on lately too.
Yeah.
So going forward, is your concern would still be expenses and accountability with employees? Or am I not misstating it?
No, it has to be. It has to be. Yeah, we have to, you know, we talked about roads a year ago, and one of our big pushes was to to do a lot of our roads this year. Now with the pandemic, we're not going to be able to do as many roads this year. And that's too bad because, as most people say, when you drive into a town, you're driving on the road, boom, 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 boom. That's not very impressive. And we still have a lot of roads that need work. And Medway Street's horrible. I mean, horrible. And that's disappointing that we're not going to be able to get to that. So I think we have to get back on track. We've got to get to our roads. We've got to watch our finances. We've got to figure out what we're going to do with our fire station. I mean, we made a promise, and the taxpayers.
What do you think's going to happen?
I mean,
it doesn't sound like there's.
No, I don't think we could do anything for at least a year. I think we're going to have to. I think we're working on. Before the pandemic, we were working on a fire station committee. We have to get that up and running, and we have to decide what we're going to do for the firefighters with respect to their facility. I mean, we promised that. The taxpayers voted on that. They wanted it, and to just say, oh well, can't do it. Sorry, we spent too much money. That's unacceptable.
Well, where would that money come from? Would you have to have a bond or whatever?
You'd have to probably borrow it. So, and it's going to be tougher. It's going to be tougher. And with the pandemic, with the other funds down, it's probably going to be very difficult and probably not going to be able to be FY22. We're probably going to have to push it out. I mean, we identified $50 million of capital expenditures before the pandemic. $50 million of capital expenditures.
That was was that like a wish list?
That was a wish list, correct. Now, on that included, in addition to Freeman Kennedy School, I think that was close to $23 million. It included a fire station renovation. So it included a lot of things, but $50 million. And right now, I would say we're looking 3, 4, 5 years out before we can even address 1 or 2 of those items. So that's a little disappointing. And the roads, to me, is personally disappointing because I really thought we could make some headway there. And it looks like we're not going to, which is too bad.
Well, you know what I think is this different about you is your financial background, because you have caught things that the others didn't see. And I thought that was, and you may remember that, and I remember that, and it was just simply a matter of you looking at it, but taking the initiative to look and being able to read it and understand it and being familiar with, financial statements.
Yeah. I think my background was finance. My degrees are in finance. I think a lot of it has to do with being a business owner as well. You're constantly looking at numbers. You're constantly trying to evaluate things, and you get good at it. You get good at it, and you should. You should be able to look at things and see what makes sense very quickly. So I think a lot of it, yes, it's financial background, but I think a lot of it comes from being a business owner and spending a lot of time looking at numbers, trying to see where the men are, understand where our profits are. So I think that makes a big difference. You really and you have to be quick at it. You're negotiating contracts, you're looking at contracts. You've got to be fast on your feet. So I think that's a big plus as well.
How much time do you spend, would you say, for each meeting?
I would say I probably spend 10 hours. Between reading, about 10 hours.
Say again. 10
hours. Yeah. I think reading the agenda and then researching if I want to research something. I probably spend 10 hours a week. Yeah, I would say I spend.
So you're talking about 20 hours and you're talking about 20 hours a meeting. Is that right?
Well, yeah, 10 hours a meeting. 10 hours a meeting.
I mean, I'm not contradicting you. I mean, it just.
Yeah. You do, because you want to read it, you want to research. There's a lot of emails that come across, background information, so you try to review those. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time, and a lot of it piggybacks with my zoning board, which adds to it as well. So between the zoning board,
is that a help to you? Is it a help to you?
Oh, absolutely. I think having the zoning background and experience certainly makes a lot of these issues very much easier to deal with. I don't think if I had the zoning background, a lot of these issues would be harder to deal with when we're talking about things like the B1 or we're talking about different zoning issues. So
true.
I think it does help. Absolutely.
You haven't really had, has anybody come from ZBA to the select board that you would, I'm trying to think myself. I don't think.
We were actually, we were the warrant. We thought we'd have a couple of zoning articles in the fall, and most of those were tabled. And then again, this spring, we were actually going to have some zoning articles, but most of those are tabled. And again, the Zoning Board of Appeals doesn't write zoning articles, but we
Right.
certainly have to understand them because we have to interpret them. So it does help, though. It does help. And you get it, and the
And I didn't,
zoning gives you a good feel of what's going on in town. You know what's going on with the 40Bs because you're part of them. You understand what's going down in the C1 through C4 districts because you're hearing about them. So it gives you a little bit of feel for where our commercial base is going. Is it improving? Is there problems with it? I mean, we had some issues, earlier this year where we didn't feel that some people were getting help trying to develop their commercial property. So when you have people saying, we need to develop more commercial property, we need to make sure our employees are helping those people develop these commercial properties. So I think wearing that ZBA hat helps a little bit.
but
In some cases, it actually helps because go ahead.
But I do remember that, yeah, the sync is off a little bit. But I know there was one woman that came to speak to the Board of Selectmen who was disappointed with the way things had gone. And she had been, the issue had been in the ZBA, but then, and I thought that was a very good thing that she did to come in and speak directly to you three. And
No,
you know who I'm talking about.
I do, and she we actually, I'll be happy. Other than if it gets appealed, we just approved a special permit for her last evening at the ZBA. So good for her.
The same woman?
Yep.
I thought she
Yep.
started a business elsewhere.
He did, but they decided to do another business. So they're going to be able to hopefully get a building permit and do some work on that building and
The same one.
Yeah. So that's great. That's great.
Now, is this a different, I'm just curious, is this a different business? Is this the same
Yes.
line of work she was in before?
No, it's actually a property management company. Yeah.
Huh.
So that's
Because
great.
I think she did start her salon elsewhere.
She did. Yeah. So that
They're
helps.
very,
And,
they're very industrious.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I think we were able to make gains. I mean, even though I wear the ZBA hat, I think getting 144 Seekonk Street down to 44 units. Wearing both hats, the selectman hat and the ZBA hat.
That was a shock. That was really, I mean, I don't think anybody expected that.
Yeah, when you're able to negotiate with both hats on, it helps a little bit. So it's another area where those two hats help a lot.
I would imagine you feel that was a big accomplishment for the board and everything that went on the ZBA to modify that.
I think a big accomplishment for the town. I think it's going to be, if the comprehensive permit goes through, it'll be a nice development and certainly is more in keeping with the nature of this town as opposed to 104 units or 88 units. I think if it goes through and eventually when it's developed, people will be pleased. So
was there anything else sorry. Was there anything else that you wanted to say before we close about
already? You didn't talk about the animals. You didn't talk about any of that.
Well, I mean, I didn't say. Well, you have been you've had a little disappointment with your PFAL raising efforts. Am I right?
I am actually even more disappointed as I speak to you tonight because I haven't seen my PFAL all day.
Him or her?
Her. And so
I thought that would be a good sign.
Well,
wouldn't that be a good sign?
Thing. It may be a bad thing. And my problem is Mr. Peacock is howling from the rooftop. So I'm sure my neighbors.
Looking for her?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. So I'm sure my neighbors won't be happy with me for the next couple of days. So I'm hoping she's off land.
Wow.
Doing something else and something hasn't happened to her. So probably when I finish.
How long is that?
Just today. I think when I finish this meeting with you, I'm going to go do a little looking and see where she might be. Hopefully she's around. So a little concern there.
My Lord. Isn't that interesting that he's calling?
Oh yeah. 4 o'clock this morning. I don't know if the neighbors were too happy with him calling. So we'll see. But other than that, everything is good. Everything's good. I think it's been a good year. I've enjoyed it immensely. It is hard work, but you know what? You take the position for that reason. You want to help the community. I think it's a good board. I like working with Cece and like working with Kevin, and I hope I get reelected so we can continue it for the next 3 years.
Well, I think there are a lot of people that really do like you, and I think they're grateful for the inroads that you made. I mean, I don't know a lot of people, but I think I think that's the case.
Great. Well, thank you. We'll be putting out signs hopefully this weekend, and
Right.
we'll hope for a good turnout. It looks like I guess there's over 900 people who took out mail-in ballots.
Oh my goodness.
So it looks like we'll have a pretty robust turnout, which is great.
Wow.
Regardless of who wins, I think it's people voting is always the most important thing. Getting your impression out there.
Well, it would be about your race because there's nothing else is opposed.
No, it would be. So it's regardless of what happens, it's great. It's good to see people getting out there and voting. So that's the good news. Yeah.
So we want to get the word out about the candidates night. I was just talking to Katie, because not everybody's real comfortable with going online, but I mean, that's what we're going to have to do. I mean, at least we're having it. Before I leave, I used to say, Katie has carried me through this and has been so very patient with me. And so I just wanted to again thank you, Katie, for everything that you've done, because she really was, I really kind of struggled with this, but we got, and I have one more. I have Jim Leon yet to do.
Good.
So, and we'll be all done. So thank you, Christopher.
As long as you're learning, right?
I'm sorry, what?
As long as you're learning each day, that's the important thing, right?
Yes, I suppose. Yes, I guess it is. Yeah.
That's right. Very good.
All right. Well, listen, thank you very much.
Again. Yep.
Oh, no, my pleasure. And thank you very much for watching State and Local. My guest was Christopher Weeder. He is the incumbent selectman. So, pay attention. Go to the candidates night. Find out about that. The NCTV is running it, and it should be very interesting. But it's going to be on Zoom, and you can ask questions ahead of time. And there's an email to go. An address to go to, and you can do that, and that'll be so that's going to be interesting, I think. So listen, thank you for watching. This is NCTV. I'm Anne Marie Battistone, and you are watching State and Local.